and my ankles just go sideways and I just landed on my butt because it's so rainy. It's downpour wind. I'm holding actually the tent to the ground. No, I see her. She gets closer, and on her phone are the lyrics to the song. And she gets in my ear and she says, "I'm going to sing with you." All red in the face, sweating. My keyboard is partially made out of metal. So every time I'd go to change settings, I'd burn myself. And she had in the palms of her hands, she had like candles that she had like lit, and she was like dancing with them, like walking throughout the audience. I'm like, is she like with them? There was this lady, um, which let me before I tell this story, what kind of language can I use in this this podcast?
All right. Hey, Haley, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Let's start off by letting everybody know who you are, what you do, and what your current projects are.
All right. Well, my name is Hailey Ezzell. I am a musician, obviously. I'm a singer, songwriter, and a multi-instrumentalist. And I have a couple different projects that people may know me from or might want to get to know me for. One of them is my original band, which is a fairly new project called just the Hailey Ezzell Band. Then we also have my cover band. It's a five-piece cover band called Stone Lace. And then we have my duo, which is Sentimental Street. That's my dad and I. And then there's just me by myself, Hailey Zell solo. So I've got quite a few iterations of myself.
And how long have you been performing live?
So I did my first paid show because I previously had been in School of Rock when I was in middle and high school. So I did my first paid show when I was 15. It was a fill-in show for one of my friends. So he was crazy enough to realize that I was going to be capable of helping him. So when I was 15, I'm 23 now, so I've been doing it for a while.
What's the furthest you've ever traveled for a gig?
So I think I was sitting down thinking of that earlier, and the furthest that I've gone yet has been Key Largo.
Bad, yeah. Have you ever experienced any embarrassing moments while performing on stage? Any funny memories from performing?
I've had a couple a couple faux pas moments, kind of like everyone, you know. Um, a lot of voice cracks, some tripping, some especially with my cover band Stone Lace because I'm usually wearing these like floor length skirts and combat boots, and apparently they don't get together as well as you would think they would, and so they like to. I've not fallen. That is my one thing is I have not yet fallen. I need to knock on wood there, but yeah, lots of slips. I have actually at the first show that I did with like my band, which was the band before Stone Lace, I had this stage that was on that was probably about 3 or 4 feet up in the air. And the whole thing up and down all day loading in. So I was like, I was comfortable with the distance. And I was like, okay, when I go to do this song, I'm going to go out into the audience. I'm just going to jump from the stage on and land, on my feet, go into the audience. And I guess I had put too much oomph into my jump. So I land on my toes and my ankles just go sideways and I just landed on my butt. But I still hit, I had timed it so that my first note and my feet touching the ground would sync up. And I listened to just the audio of it years ago. I had listened to just the audio tape. I was like, you can't hear the fall though. I was like, still did the I still did the note.
You had to
But yeah,
see.
that was probably yeah, that was probably the worst.
Was there ever a show where you had to push through an illness? What's the most sick you've ever been on stage?
I've had a couple times where I've had like, pretty serious cold. My 21st birthday, I did a show. It was on my actual birthday. So I had a container of honey with a spoon, throat coat singer's tea, throat lozenges, and occasional shots of Jaeger because my friend told me that that was what I had to do. And it does help in limited amounts, but that was probably the most sick. I've also been like physically where I've had knee braces on during shows. I had one show where literally I would get off the stage and I'd be on crutches. So I've had some interesting things, but those are probably the two most extreme ones I've had.
Wow, that's amazing, man. You're a trooper. You are
I'm
tough.
I'm I'm stubborn. That's really the
Oh. Was there ever a show that made you like nervous or a performance that really got to your nerves, anxious?
um there's always like a little kind of underlying level of being nervous, sort of as a anticipatory response, you know? I've had certain shows where it's like, okay, we've got this fill in, or we've got this new guy, or we've got these new songs, and you know, that's a little nervous. The most nervous I've probably been as of late was I was doing this show and I had already planned we were going to have a fill in for our guitarist because our guitarist had been double booked, and that was all well and good. We had a great fill in who we've worked with a couple times. And then the day of the show, my drummer calls me and says, "Hey, I'm like dead sick. I just cannot do it." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, it's the day of, so I'm not going to cancel." So I called my friend who's also a drummer. He's a really good drummer, and I had him come and fill in. But it was two fill-ins who had never met before and had never played together before, so it was all this
Oh,
kind
what
of
could possibly go wrong?
chemistry. Yeah, yeah. It actually ended up somehow, somehow it ended up being pretty good. But it was one of those things where you're just kind of like, ah, the entire time. So, yeah.
If you're while performing, have you ever had a security situation where the show had to be paused due to a wild fan?
So the show wasn't paused. However, I did have a show where the stage was on the ground, like there was no lift at all. And I'm singing and I wear a headset when I sing. It's just easier that way for me. And I was singing Sweet Child of Mine. I remember this. And this lady kind of came up on the stage and she had in her hand her phone. And I was thinking, okay, maybe she's just like really drunk. She thinks like she's going to take a photo or something. I'm like, okay, still bad, but okay, at least it kind of makes a little bit of drunk sense, I guess. But no, I see her. She gets closer, and on her phone are the lyrics to the song. And she gets in my ear and she says, "I'm going to sing with you." Mind you, I'm wearing a headset. And also, this was probably early 2021. So everyone was still a little concerned about getting sick and everything. And I'm like, okay, no, no, you're not. So I kind of just had the headset over on my right side. I just kind of slowly turned away from her because I didn't have like not like I have security or anything, and it's not like this
Right.
40 something year old woman looked all that threatening. She just really shouldn't have been there. So that was probably yeah, that was probably the worst one.
And it puts you in an awkward situation because what's the right way
Yeah,
to handle that, you know?
exactly. Like I can't like remove her. And I'm
Yeah,
also like my
escalate the
microphone is
situation, make it
strapped to my
worse.
face. Yeah. You know, it's not like I can really very easily in the middle of what I'm doing say like, "Hey, you know, you can't be up here,"
Yeah.
because I'm not trying to have a conversation. I'm in the middle of a verse, you know? So that was crazy.
Have you ever experienced flat tires or car trouble? Maybe got stuck in traffic that caused you to be late for a show or even have to cancel?
So the first show I ever did, the one I mentioned earlier when I was 15, we're on the way to the venue. And in the car, it was something like my mom, my dad, myself, and I think one other person. And we're all in the car, and on the way there, we get literally flat tire. And we're like, oh my God. So we pull into it was a La Quinta parking lot. We pull into, and luckily my best friend was on her way to see my show as well, and I guess she was just going to be really early. So I asked if she could come grab me. So she went and grabbed my parents, and then I had called the drummer who was also on his way, and he grabbed me with my keyboards because I was. It'd be one thing if I was singing and I could just kind of walk in and be a little late, but I had like a double keyboard set up and like a microphone and like all this extra nonsense. So I was like, okay. Luckily, I was able to get picked up by the drummer as well. So it ended up working out. I wasn't late
Good,
and,
good.
didn't
Yeah.
cancel or anything, but that was pretty like on the nose first show issue.
It's stressful enough trying to get a band together and rehearse and show up for a show, be on time, and then you get a flat tire. It's like, come on, what's
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
What about like weather? Have you ever had any crazy weather delays, lightning or tornadoes at a show that got canceled or in the middle of a performance?
So I've had kind of like two extremes in that. I had one show that got delayed. It was an outdoor show and it was one of those ones where they'd put you in like they have like a tent kind of pop-up thing and I'm standing there watching the clock. We can't unload our trailer and it's so because it's so rainy. It's downpour wind. I'm holding actually the tent to the ground to try to
Yeah,
make sure
protect
it
your
doesn't go
equipment, right?
anywhere.
Yeah.
So that was one extreme. We ended up starting an hour late. The whole thing continued and it was fine and we were all good, but just it started late. The other extreme I had was last year Memorial Day. I did an outdoor show and in between sets we were walking into the deep meat freezer, not just the meat freezer, but the deep freezer for the meat because it was so hot outside. The show ended an hour early because it was one of those shows where they had like 50/50s and different raffle drawings and stuff. So like you usually have a little bit of a drop off after they pull the tickets anyway. But pretty much as soon as those numbers got pulled, everyone went home because it was like 97 degrees, pure humidity, hotter than hell kind of thing. And I was looking at my guys, they're all red in the face, sweating. My keyboard is partially made out of metal. So every time I'd go to change settings, I'd burn myself. So we ended an hour early. We still got paid,
Yeah.
luckily, like the same. But there's literally it was horrible. It was so hot. Like it was making people like delirious. We were forgetting chords and stuff. It was awful.
Oh man, no, dehydration's real. Man, I always bring
Yeah.
Gatorade to every show, water. I mean,
Yeah.
it's no joke.
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
been
and we were having like buckets of water and Gatorade and stuff and all everything, but it was one of those losing battles. I remember when we were breaking down, because God knows we had to stop the show and then we had to break it all down.
yeah, then you
I
gotta
had
physically work
my
out.
Yeah, I had my boyfriend take the bucket that had the ice water with the bottles of water, and I'm like, just like pour it on my neck a little bit. And my bass player came up behind me, dumped the whole thing on my head, and I was like, you know what? I'm not even mad. That feels amazing.
And then and then it gets really cold down here too. People don't realize. Like cold to
Yeah,
our
it does. It
standards,
does on
it does get
occasion.
cold.
Yeah, I've had a couple long sleeve shirt gigs. They're rare, but I've had a couple. Like January.
Like it hurts your fingers. Like I play guitar, so like my
Mm.
fingers are like frozen and it hurts, blisters and it can
Oh
really
yeah,
suck,
and then
yeah.
like you don't think about the one thing I always say whenever it's outside and it's going to be hot is as a singer I'm like, hey, well at least it will be easy to sing
Yeah.
because that hot air keeps you loose, keeps you.
Yeah. True.
But the cold, you're constricted, you don't get the full breath, you're just not. It's not the best.
Have you ever had to change plans last minute before a show? Maybe someone didn't make it to the gig or some equipment broke?
So not before the show, but I've had two instances where one of my former drummers, she had pulled a muscle in her shoulder during mid show Now, for context to this, I call myself a sufficient drummer, but I'm certainly not like I'm not anyone's first or second or third or even sixth choice, you know. I'm just kind of a keep the beat kind of person, but I enjoy it. So we had this show the first time, you know, she's sitting there and I can literally like in between songs, she's literally like, I'm just in so much pain. And I looked at the set list and I saw every rose has its thorn. I was like, yeah, I could probably fake that. And I literally went and I played that on drums for on stage for the first time. And
Wow.
then at a later point, we had a show. It seems everything happens with Sweet Child of Mine because
Mm.
she was like, I'm really hurting. I can't, it was literally the last song of the show. And I was like, you know what? This song I actually do know really well. And I have luckily I had practiced it because I also sang that song. So I'm sitting there like drumming and singing at the same time. And it was kind of terrifying for me because I'm like, oh, okay, I really don't want to derail this, either vocally or on the drums here. I There's video. I did a pretty good job, but it was there was certainly some spots where you could tell I was not the person supposed to be playing that.
You know, the things we go through, you know,
Oh yeah.
off
Yeah, I
stage,
mean,
on stage.
yeah.
Here's a question related to that. Things you wish people understood about musicians or performers.
So, and that is a good question. That was one I was looking at for a minute trying to figure out. I feel like sometimes people just assume that there's a couple major assumptions. There's assumptions that we're lazy, that we are bad with money, that we don't have future plans, or that we're all like delusional, and there's all these different like crazy things where it's like you have the stereotypical guy who lives in his mom's basement playing guitar sort of like stereotype. And it's like, no, some of us are like, actually, we're functioning members of society. I've
Yeah.
certainly met the people who are like, getting high,
Oh,
playing
get a
bongos
haircut and
and
get a
doing
job.
nothing. Yeah, get a haircut, get a job,
Yeah.
I've certainly met people like that, but there's I think at least out of the percentage of musicians that I've met, I think especially if you start going, I've noticed sort of a trend between the higher quality musician, the more like of a just quality person they are in terms of like responsibility and stuff. So I mean, I don't know. I've met more examples of like solid, responsible adults than people would probably think. And I mean, some of the musicians I know are like geniuses. I mean, I've met so many smart people, and I feel like that's just a tired stereotype that's like, oh, you must be doing this because you did bad in math class. And it's like, no, I graduated summa cum laude from an honors college. I don't know what you're talking about. Like it's
Well, it takes incredible discipline to be so good at something like
yeah.
this.
Yeah, it's when I've on and off I've done like solo piano and voice lessons for kids.
Yeah.
And whenever I'm trying to like explain it to the parent, I'm like, this is a discipline thing. This is responsibility. This
Yeah.
is time management. This is multitasking. This is so many essential life skills that can be helpful. And if you develop them at an earlier age, as I started piano when I was 8, if then you can really set yourself up for success. And there's other avenues to do it. I feel like sometimes to a certain extent organized sports can do that as well. But I mean like and of course I'm biased, but the discipline that you get at least from a child's age of being a musician, I feel like is very hard to replicate and to find anywhere else.
Well, there's a business side and then there's tax
Oh yeah.
work, running
Oh
an
yeah.
LLC, a corporation, money handling,
Oh yeah.
dealing with agencies, people skills,
Copyright.
communication.
Yeah. I mean, there's business, there's entrepreneurship, there's social media marketing. I mean, I I was having this conversation with my boyfriend actually the other day about hypothetically like updating my resume or whatever for whatever reason. And it was like, oh, well, would you put your music stuff on there? I'm like, yeah, I would because that's business and marketing and, all these different bullet points that businesses, at least should be looking for. So it's a lot more advantageous than I feel like people think, It's not just, a couple people getting high listening to Pink Floyd. It's a solid trait to have if you're really into it.
Those are the people who don't make it. You wouldn't be very good if you were
Yeah.
just getting high and wasted all the time.
Yeah. Exactly.
Do you have any pre-show rituals or even post-show traditions?
Um, I used to do this like really, really long vocal warm up. And then I moved into a townhouse and you can't the walls are thinner
Yeah.
than I'd like them to be. So pretty much I just like to kind of listen to music, something that kind of gets me into the headspace of like, okay, we're gonna be not like amp music, like my gym playlist and my pre-show playlist are different, but um just something that kind of puts me in a good mood that I can kind of warm myself up to in the car. I'm listening, you know, you make love and fun, Fleetwood Mac, okay, we're driving to the venue, it's stuff like that. I mean, there's something to be said about, and maybe this is just me because I'm a little extra and I have basically, my costumes, if you will. But like there's something about putting on putting on your wardrobe and going, okay, like this is my headspace now. I'm ready to go. I'm on. So it's less of like a ritual, more of just like getting yourself in the mindset to be perceived.
What are some of the most interesting accommodations you've received for a gig? Whether it was like food or like gifts, special access, other than just compensation. Did you ever get anything extra or different?
um I'm kind of still at the level where like if the venue gives me enough money to cover my dinner, I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
So that's really my most excitement is when I get a tab. Um, and then I mean I've had actually and maybe this is like seems small to some people, but to me it's been pretty big where recently I've been doing some solo stuff and I've been kind of given the permission and the space to sell merch. Which some venues are very much like, no, all, transactions and all everything's going to go through us, blah, 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 blah. And
Yeah.
they're very strict
They
on
want a
that.
cut of
But
everything, don't they?
exactly. So I've been very lucky to have just kind of the freedom to go, hey, can I set my stuff up? And they're like, yeah, sure, go crazy. And it's it's been very nice. So it's nothing too huge yet to say. But overall, it's kind of it means a lot to me at this point in my career, so I'm pretty pleased.
Other than your gear, what are some of your must-have items that you bring to every show with you?
So I have a bag that is I wish I brought it downstairs, but it's too big for its own good. It is my makeup. It's my on-stage bag, which has my wallet, my business cards, my lipstick, my ponytail holders, because I've had those break mid-show,
Sure.
throat lozenges, Mucinex, all that. That's my on-stage bag. And then the rest of the bag has a backup mic, a backup cable, um, hand fans, lotion, Tums, like everything that you could possibly
Gotta
think
have
of that you
Tums, gotta
might
have Pepto.
possibly need. Yeah. Yeah. Tums have there's this beautiful, beautiful place we play, and it's an Italian restaurant, and it's the bomb. I love their food so much, but it's cheese and red sauce and meat. And it's like there's
Oh,
nothing on the menu that you can get that's not that. And so
gonna get you.
I'm like just bring my order out with a thing of Tums, you know.
Oh, for sure. No, it's it's Tylenol and Pepto and a fan. I gotta have a good fan.
Yep. Hand fan, yeah.
Um, let's see.
Deodorant.
Oh yeah.
Hairbrush, all that stuff. So that's pretty much the thing that I'm always lugging around with me, even though when I put it in the crook of my elbow, it cuts off my circulation. But it's important.
What's the funniest thing you've ever seen on stage or out in the audience?
I mean, there's been lots of things over the years. I mean, the one that comes to mind was actually it wasn't at my show. I was going to go see a friend's show, and I was in the audience, and there was this lady, which let me before I tell this story, what kind of language can I use in this this podcast?
Uh, maybe just no F,
Okay.
just in case
This
YouTube
th
gets weird.
yeah, that's fair. Um this I called this woman vagina lady
Fair.
because she was dancing in front of the band and she had these itty bitty short shorts on and she kept doing like cartwheels and back bends and
Oh.
weird sort of like stuff that you wouldn't usually see, and I was concerned that her vagina was going to pop out, hence the hence the name. And I was just like watching her, I'm like she's having a grand old time, but it was one of those things where it's like she was clearly kind of cramping other people's style by taking up too much stage space. But I mean it was, or not stage space but like floor space. And that was really funny to me, because I'm like at
That
least
was
she's
fun.
having fun, you know. Like it could be worse,
At
but
least she's not
I
hurting
just,
anybody or damaging
yeah,
anything,
you
I
know,
guess. I mean,
nothing's being
okay.
damaged, you know. But it was so funny to me just because she was just everywhere. But yeah, I mean that's the main one that kind of comes to mind right now. I know I've got some other things I've seen just throughout the years, but that's the main one that pops in my mind right now.
What are some of the most unusual places you performed at?
Well, I've played in some backyards, which is kind of nice because it's like, hey, we found this one 4x4 space to squeeze you into, and we've brought a tent that's got holes in it. And don't worry, it's just definitely going to rain later, and there's mosquitoes. So I've done that. I mean, you get into some of those hole in the wall like VFW type places where it's like it's really nice. They're either really really nice or like the middle of nowhere, and there's
Right.
like no in between. And so I've done some stuff like that. And I just remembered this. I had a show at one of those places, and there was it was a three-act bill, and one of the other bands. I don't know if this lady was like unofficially like if she was a member or if she was a friend or whatever, but this is actually funnier to me than the last story. There was this lady who would just walk around the audience kind of dressed like a witch, kind of like very flowy, like, you know, and she had in the palms of her hands, she had like candles that she had like lit, and she was like dancing with them, like walking throughout the audience. I'm like,
Hmm.
is she like with them or is she just here? And I never got an answer to that, but that was one of
Does
those
she
things
know
where
where
I
she's
was just
at?
like, yeah, does she know what's going on? What am I looking at? I'd forgotten about that until right now. That
Our
was a
job
weird
as
one.
performers, we kind of get paid to people watch sometimes, don't we?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like people don't understand how much like we're as much as like you're watching us, we're watching you. Like
Yeah.
it's a two-way glass here, you know.
What's something you still want to do in music that you haven't done yet?
Put out an album. I am working on it right now. It's in production. It's been in production for a little while. but I'm currently working on a 9 song original album, and I plan on like just fully putting this thing out there. I've found like distributors for even for like vinyl, just because I think that'd be a little fun. I'm a collector of vinyl, so I kind of want, a couple copies.
Yeah.
But that's like my main goal as of right now is putting out the album. That's why I just put together my original band to support that when it's ready to come out. So that's currently my objective that I'm working towards. So yeah.
Are there any specific venues that you still want to perform at?
So at this point I'm pretty much anyone who wants to take me. No, but it's there's a
Come on,
couple
let's dream
places
big.
like
Give me some big
locally.
dream gigs.
Well, there was one that I was really wanting to do for a while. That's actually I'm really excited for because we're actually going to be doing it. For years I wanted to do the band shell at Margaritaville in Hollywood,
Yeah.
and we got booked for it. So we're going to be doing that. I haven't been on that stage since I was in School of Rock. That was my first School of Rock show was on that stage. So I'm really really excited for that. There's some places, I mean like the okay, I go pretty much around the state of Florida watching Styx concerts. My favorite band is Styx, and if they're playing down here, I go see them pretty much. And they play at the St. Augustine Amphitheater, which I've pretty much determined is the most beautiful amphitheater I've ever seen, and possibly the most
It
beautiful
is
one that
beautiful. Yeah.
exists. I think it's gorgeous, and I would just love to play there. That would be, I mean, it's just such a beautiful setup, and it's an amphitheater, but it's nice and open feeling, and it's just a really beautiful place. So I mean, that would be somewhere I'd like to play.
It's funny you say that. I've performed in almost every city in Florida. St. Augustine
Yeah,
is like the one I have never performed in.
I love St. Augustine. I've seen every time I've gone there, it's been to see Styx, but it's I always make a trip of it, like several days, because it's just the city itself is gorgeous and there's so much to do. My favorite record store is actually up there, so
Really?
I always try to spend some time there. So.
Oh, I've done all the ghost tours. I've done the fort. I've done the
Hmm.
old city. I love it up there.
I haven't done the fort yet. I haven't done that
It's
one.
cool.
So
Love the ghost tours. I love the museums, the
yeah.
wax museum. Is there like a
Yeah.
non-traditional venue location that you'd love to host a concert at, like somewhere like really random?
So it's actually really funny that you ask that because one of my friends, she lives in Massachusetts, and she owns a record store. And she has recently started hosting bands there. And as soon as I saw the flyer, because I follow her store, even though I can't really realistically shop there, I messaged her. I was like, I want to play there so bad. It's because it's one of those really really cool places. It's named after a Styx song. You can tell this is like my favorite band. But it's called like Crystal Ball Records. It's in like small town in Massachusetts, and I just think it would be so cool to play there.
My buddy just said he wants to perform at a Cracker Barrel one day,
Honestly, I feel like that would be the perfect place if you had like a little like country trio.
like a bluegrass
I
thing.
think would be, yeah, like a bluegrass thing. I mean, I saw a video of some people playing informally outside of a Cracker Barrel, but never an organized adventure. So that would be funny.
I mean, I've played at a nudist resort. That was pretty wild. It's like
That
300
is
naked
pretty
people
cool.
dancing. Never
That
get that
that
out of my
seems that
head.
seems like a lot more than I'd ever want to see at 300 people.
It's kind
That
of weird because you're the only one wearing clothes and you feel odd when everyone else is naked.
yeah. I was gonna ask like if they required you to also be naked.
No, that was optional and we didn't take them up. But it felt strange being the only one out of like 300.
That, yeah, I could see
If you
that.
can
Yeah,
imagine that.
that's funny.
I got one more question here before we wrap it up. Last question. What's the best advice you ever received about the music business? Or what advice would you give someone just starting out in music?
So, the best piece of advice that I've ever gotten was when I asked for advice from Tommy Shaw of Styx. And he said pretty much, because I had told them, I'm a musician, I'm a songwriter, I do this and this and that, and like what can I do? What should I do? How should I be, doing this? And he says, first off, just write everything down. From a songwriting point of view, you're not going to remember it. As soon as it's come out of your head, it's gone. So write everything down, use your voice memos because you're going to lose some potentially really good stuff otherwise. And then the other thing he told me was if I'm going to just say how he worded it and then I'm going to word it kind of for general thing is he told me, don't let anyone dissuade you. Don't let anyone discourage you from doing this because you seem like you really are set on doing it. And I'm going to rephrase that for other people saying, if this is something you really, really want, and this is something like you can't imagine your life without it, I mean, just do it. I mean, not to quote Nike, but like just, find your avenue and figure out, is it and take some risks with it. Is it that you're comfortable just going to karaoke one night a week and you can sing that way and that fills your heart's content, or are you playing at local jam nights and doing a one man show at like the open mic night, or do you want to be playing in front of hundreds or thousands of people, or do you want to just be behind the curtain producing or writing or something for other people? Like you just have to find your avenue within it, and there's no harm in trying several. There's no harm in going, okay, well, I can do this and I can do this, or I'll try this for 6 months and see how I like it, and or if I don't like it, I'll switch over to this, and blah
I
blah
agree.
blah. There's no reason to not try a bit of everything because there's so many options within this.
I think that's fantastic advice. I like the idea of you got to branch out and try things, because you might stumble
Yeah,
on something you really love, you know?
yeah,
And it's okay to try and fail and mess up and
oh
learn,
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's it's a lot more boring if you just walk in and it's perfect the first time,
Yeah.
you know?
There's no better teacher than failure. You shouldn't be
Yeah,
afraid to fail. That's how you
no,
learn.
exactly. Yeah,
You got to take risks. Well, Haley, thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up here. I'm going to let you get back to your day, but that was fantastic. Before we go, is there anywhere we can check you out? Any links or websites or anything we can check out for your music?
yeah, sure. So I like to say that you can find my music everywhere except for the radio. So you just look up my my name, Hailey Ezzell, Hailey Ezzell, and I'll send you all the links. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Hailey Ezzell Musician. You'll find what you're looking for, and Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon. I found out recently that the Alexa you can usually ask for me and it'll actually play, which is kind of crazy.
Nice.
And then also if you this is going to seem like a left turn, but if you are a reader, I'm also an author, so I have a book out called Ghost Writers. And you can find that. It's also about music. It's a fictional story. Um, and inspired largely by some of my experiences and a hefty amount of imagination. And you can find that on, Amazon, what's it called, barnesandnoble.com, and or you can DM me and I can send you a copy. So Yep, that's pretty much all my wares.
And what we can do is we can drop some links in the description. People can just click on
Yeah,
them from there. We'll get that set
definitely.
up. All right, for now, we're going to sign off. Thank you so much. You have a
All
great night.
right,
We'll see you
thank
again,
you.
okay?
You too. Bye.
Take care.